I can't believe that you immediately got out of surgery, reached for your phone, and took a whole bunch of selfies of yourself sitting in that hospital bed.
What? The lighting was so good in the hospital.
I guess you got to catch that golden hour glow.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I was actually surprised that they even let me take my phone back there. But that's more of what we're going to talk about today in this video about the difference between surgery in Denmark versus the US. So let's get into it.
Now, for a little background on this, Derek recently had a minor surgical procedure done, which happened to be the same exact one that I had back in the US about 12 years ago. So we figured it was a good opportunity for us to compare basically how surgery is in Denmark versus the US at a personal level.
Yeah, so I hope you guys like my new nose. Just kidding. You can see it's exactly the same. But Mike and I both had nasal polypectomy or surgery on nasal polyps. Pretty common. I actually didn't realize it was as common as it is. But I've been meeting with my ear, nose, throat doctor in Denmark. And after a few appointments, they referred me to have a CAT scan and basically kind of take the steps to the only real outcome that gives major results, which is the actual surgery that I got.
Yeah, and I think one of the interesting things you found out here is that I think to understand the Danish healthcare system, it helps to kind of navigate the different nuances. And one of the unique things was that in ENT, you actually didn't need to have a referral for, but you didn't know that for the first 4 years you were here.
Yeah, you may have seen in one of our recent videos where we talked about our fails in Denmark, that one was not switching doctors when we didn't really like the advice or health outcomes that we had from our first doctor here. And she neglected to tell me, even though I complained about what I thought were allergies or sinus problems, frequent sinus issues, that I wanted to go to an ENT, and she didn't really ever even let me know that I could do that on my own without having referrals. The one specialist in Denmark that you don't need a referral from your primary doctor to go to.
Yeah, now in the US...
Without insurance.
Right. Now in the US, because it is a specialist, you do need a referral, but it was kind of actually a little bit of a more simple flow. I went to a primary care physician. I had recurring sinus infections. Eventually they said you should go see an ear, nose, and throat specialist. So I got to go to a specialist. And the specialist, again, the same thing, take some CAT scans, do some investigation, looking around up there, and then say you need surgery, and then boom, you go get surgery. Relatively straightforward.
Yeah, and our new doctor, once we made that switch, was super helpful and basically went through almost the same path. It was pretty quick. I don't think I waited more than maybe 30 days to have an appointment. And that's one thing that I do want to point out, that I think in the US, especially with media that has a bias towards not having social welfare or any kind of national health care, they like to point out that other countries have long wait times, and that they go to America for healthcare. I don't think that's true. We do have some of the best doctors in America, and that may be why some people go there. But I did not wait any longer than you did in the US for this. And we live in a city where there's often so many people, so there's often a wait time. Just wasn't the case.
And actually for your case, because the wait time in the public hospital would have been so long, they actually referred you to a private hospital, even though you're on public insurance.
Yeah. So that's something that I think kind of gets misrepresented in the U.S. and that, maybe also our Danish friends might think that healthcare isn't as good in the U.S., but generally it was the same as far as wait times and care.
Now, the one thing I think is actually funniest that is a unique Danish twist on this is kind of the pre-surgery discussion that you had with the surgeon, understanding all the potential risks that you may have as you go through the surgery. Now, in the US, they basically just tell you, yeah, you're going to be fine. Like, you're going to go under anesthesia, you're going to have this, going to get it done. No worries about it at all. Probably because they're afraid if they tell you too much, then you might sue in the end. You're not in Denmark.
Yeah, I think that having had other medical procedures done in the U.S., I definitely found that the bedside manner of the Danish specialists and surgeons that I met with was maybe what any foreigner living in Denmark may expect. It was very literal, very direct, as Danes have a way of being, which usually is actually nice. I find it refreshing, but sometimes I just want a doctor to give me the sugar-coated American version and just say, everything's going to be okay. We will put you under, and then you're going to wake up, and everything will be fine. I got very specific information like, well, we will be very close to your eye and it could perforate. That bone is very thin. And then we'll be very close to your brain. And if that perforates, that can make a small hole. It's okay. I'll fill it. You come back and I'll fill. So these were things that didn't necessarily comfort me in my time of stress. But all in all, everything went well. And I still do appreciate the straightforwardness of Danish culture.
Yeah, I will say, as the person who was your plus one to drop you off and pick you up, it was also kind of surprising because I remember in the US, it was kind of a very regimented thing. You had to be here by this time, you have to do this, here's your instruction, come back at this time and you can pick them up. Whereas here it was a little more loose. Like literally they said, yeah, it'll be a few hours. And like, it's like normally it'd be like, okay, come back at 2 p.m. and you can pick them up and go away, whatever else, or make sure that you have a car or whatever else. Like, no, it was very much just like, yeah, come later. He'll be done eventually.
I'm assuming that that's because in the U.S., everything is medically, a lot of things are based around avoiding a lawsuit.
I think that's what it is. So it was very specific instructions on what to do. Or it could just be just the more formality of an American medical office where I honestly do feel that Danish doctors and medical offices are much less formal than in the U.S. It just doesn't, not to say that they're disorganized, but it's just more like there's things that matter in medicine and things that don't, and the things that don't are kind of like, yeah, you'll figure it out.
Yeah. One thing that I will say though, and that I felt yes, maybe I did receive some very honest information about what might happen with the surgery, but the one thing that did put me at ease compared to in the US is that I knew I would be going home and the entire process from my ENT appointments to the CAT scan to the pre-surgery meetings with the surgeon, I knew that I would have no expense for any of that, no copay, that there would be no, in America, you often get these, even though it goes through your insurance company, you get these weird copies of the invoice that they send to the hospital. And it will say this is not a bill at the top, but it still kind of makes your heart pause for a second because you look at this thing that says that somebody paid like $10,000, $20,000 or more dollars for this treatment that you received, and you're like, well, damn, I hope that the insurance is the person who's paying for this, because you also know that they make money by not paying for things. So being able to know that I was going through the entire process without any fear of any kind of financial thing where maybe they weren't going to cover this or they weren't going to cover the anesthesia or they weren't going to cover something, and I may get a bill for $500 is something that for most Americans could just throw your entire finances off. And that could be some people not going on summer holiday or vacation that year. So it was a nice relief to know that that wasn't going to be a surprise for me.
Yeah, in the US, I got a bill. It was probably a couple $1,000s. I can't remember how much it was back then. I had a classic, like any younger American normally does, a high deductible plan. So I had to pay the first probably $2,000 or something like that. And then insurance picked up the rest of the bill. I know that it was somewhat significant, and it's something that I had to kind of budget for when the surgery was happening. I mean, that's the cost of a trip to Europe, essentially.
Yeah.
But that's how it goes in America, and that's insurance covered most of it, and I had good insurance, so there weren't any issues with that. But yeah, I had to pay for part of the CAT scan, I had to pay for a good part of the surgery, I had to pay for the doctor's visits at $60 a pop or whatever else it was. So yeah, I got a bill.
Yeah, I know some of you guys maybe have seen the video we did at Christmas where I baked some cookies with my mom back in the U.S. She has to have a relatively simple surgery later this year, and same thing, we were just talking about it, and she said, yeah, I have a $2,000 deductible because I didn't think I'd have any major medical things this year, but now I'm going to have the surgery, so I need to make sure I have that in order. Again, it's just something that unfortunately Americans are used to, but yeah, you may have to budget $2,000 to have the surgery plus the cost of the hospital visits and the doctor's visits, which may be, $20 here, $50 here, $10 here. So, okay, one thing that was different as well when I woke up from the surgery, of course I did take some selfies. I don't know why, I was still a little loopy. I also found out from the nurses, in kind of a funny way, that in Denmark you're not supposed to take your underwear off under the gown. You're supposed to leave them on. So apparently I gave everybody a show when I was moving from the bed to the Did I tell you that?
Yeah, you told me that. But it's just so funny. In a culture where people are completely comfortable being nude, that's the one place where you keep your underwear on.
Well, I don't think they were complaining. But I was a bit surprised that was different. But afterward, a few other things that were a little bit different. I went and basically got paracetamol, or what I think in the U.S. you would probably have aspirin. That was basically what I was prescribed. I feel like in the U.S. it probably would have been something a little bit stronger. But honestly, that was all that I needed. It wasn't, luckily everything was pretty good for me, and I didn't have any bad reactions or pain.
Oh yeah, I got Tylenol with codeine. I got the heavy hitter stuff. It was, they in the U.S. obviously they prescribed me a whole bunch of whatever I wanted, and it was nice. I didn't feel any pain for 2 weeks,
or anything else. Probably.
Or anything else.
Yeah. Another nice thing is that the follow-ups were all scheduled for me, so it wasn't something I had to worry about in advance, and it wasn't something that I had to do or keep track of while I was in the recovery room or anything. Basically, the surgeon did meet with me afterwards, said everything went well, you're going to be on your way, and unless you hear from me, then you're just going to come back to see me in 10 weeks, I think. And that was scheduled automatically. It showed up in my e-box, which for anybody that's American, it's almost like a national email that service that you have where you get communications from things like your hospital, your bank, things like that. So I received my follow-up appointment and a link where I could change it if I needed to, and that was it. It was all automated and done, and it is very efficient here in Denmark.
Yeah, things like the Min Sundheds platform app is really nice when you have appointments and things like that. My surgery was long enough ago that apps weren't quite as common for things like that. I know in the U.S. now, it's all very similar, I think, where your doctor will have your appointments on there if you're inside one of the healthcare networks.
It is more common to have medical portals
now. So
now.
I think that's probably not that much different anymore, and the follow was more or less the same for me as well. I think it's, when you look at it, it was interesting that kind of the mechanics were basically the same in the U.S. and Denmark. The preparation stuff, the review to see if you need the surgery itself, and then the post-surgery follow-up was basically identical between the two countries, which honestly makes sense. There's only so many ways to fix a nose.
No, that's very true. The one thing, though, that I do think is a bit different and maybe a bit better here in Denmark is that my primary care physician and then any future doctor that I may switch and go to, maybe perhaps we move to Jutland and I get a new doctor there, they're going to have all of my medical records. They're going to have the surgery. So I'm not going to have to try to think back and estimate on forms and things like that because it is all shared on the national network. That makes it really nice as well.
Yeah, I have no idea where my medical records are. I think my CAT scans are in the basement back in Philadelphia, if I think about it. So a little novelty sitting in there.
Maybe we could frame them.
We could.
That'd be lovely.
Yeah, I think that's one of the challenges, and I can say, because fortunately when in the U.S. I didn't really have any chronic illnesses, so honestly I kind of changed doctors all the time depending on what my current insurance plan was. And so honestly, I probably don't have one common medical record. I know even when it comes for things like vaccinations, I can't remember the last time that I got certain shots for things because it's not written down anywhere. And I've been really bad at that kind of record keeping. Sorry, Mom.
And I will say one other thing that I particularly learned, especially from talking to a lot of my Danish friends and colleagues, was that you do really need to call and follow up. So often I would go get the CAT scan and I just thought, okay, it's going to be, things are generally more efficient here and they have these shared records, so it should be pretty quick and I should hear from them. But everybody told me, much like it usually is in the US, they told me, no, call. If they told you the CAT scan is going to be delivered in 2 days, then call on that second day or that third day because they're probably not going to call you. And they were right. I tried to be, maybe put a little too much faith in that happening. And I definitely learned that when I called, things happened. And when I did call, I had my appointments within a week. I had my appointments before I got off the phone, but they were generally like within a week. The surgery was scheduled within a month. It was very easy, but I did have to be persistent and consistent in calling.
Yeah, and I think the difference in the U.S., it seems, at least in my experience, I think yours is similar, that when you're working with, say, kind of that first level medicine, general practitioner, that you have to be a lot more assertive and call and say, I want to see this or I want to do this. But once you get into a specialist, usually they take care of you. It's almost like concierge type service where they're calling you, they're contacting you, they're getting things set up. Partly it's a business for them. They want to make sure that they get you in and through so they can bill you. I mean, it's the way that is, for good or for bad.
Yeah, they bill a lot to that insurance company. So once you get through that gatekeeper,
you go.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's the only thing. But I still don't think my wait time was any different than yours.
Honestly, once you figured out the system, it was pretty much the same.
Yeah, so overall, I can say that my results have been really good from the surgery. I know for you too, it's kind of been life-changing. I already feel like I'm breathing a lot better and things are really good. So that's been awesome. And throughout the process, I learned a lot about what to do and not do when it comes to healthcare in Denmark. So if you want to learn more about overall what you should do and not do if you're moving to Denmark, check out this video right here that will tell you the do's and don'ts of living in Denmark. So thanks a lot for watching, guys.
Hi.